In a stunning turn of events, Kathleen Kennedy is reportedly stepping down as the head of Lucasfilm by the end of this year, you guys. And honestly, I think it's about time. Today, I'm going to deep dive into what it means for Star Wars, what went wrong under her leadership, and what is next for the franchise moving forward. This topic, it's something that I've really never addressed publicly aside from, kind of addressing it in comments as well as in live streams. So I wanted to address it here now since the news has broken about it. Kathleen Kennedy is probably like the worst thing that could have happened to Lucasfilm, honestly. Her leaving the company excites folks, just because it gives us hope for that Star Wars can now finally focus on storytelling, making it great again instead of pushing an agenda, kind of checking off a box on a list. So, this news is exciting for me, exciting for many folks, and so I'm excited to talk to you guys about this today. So we're going to dive right in. I'm going to take the story directly from the Hollywood Reporter right here. This is the article here. Lucasfilm boss Kathleen Kennedy expected to retire this year. So we'll get right into it here. After more than a decade in a galaxy far, far away, Kathleen Kennedy is charting on a course toward retirement. The Lucasfilm boss has told associates that she plans to retire by the end of 2025, Puck reported Monday night. Reps for Kennedy and Lucasfilm were not immediately available for comment. Kennedy joined Lucasfilm in 2012 as a co-chair alongside Star Wars creator George Lucas, and a few months later, she took the reins after Disney paid $4 billion for the company and Lucas exited. $4 billion at that time. You see companies buying other companies for billions of dollars all the time now. But back then in 2012, that was a big number, guys. It still is a big number thinking about it now, but it was even more so of a big number back in 2012. And thinking back whenever that sale was announced, Lucasfilm selling their entities to Disney. Back then in 2012, when that was initially announced, I was ecstatic. I think a lot of you were, man. A lot of us felt kind of like a sense of euphoria, to be honest. So much so that I actually joined the media call. I remember this. I looked it up on Disney's website for the press release announcement. And I saw that there was a number that you could dial into. And I was like, bro, I'm just going to dial in. I'm just going to listen into this call. And I did it, man. That's how excited I was about this acquisition. Like, look, bro, Star Wars is back. Like, Star Wars is coming back. This is huge. After the release of Revenge of the Sith back in 2005, it just seemed like the franchise was finished. There was no more new stories to tell, but seeing this sale to Disney, for me, I was extremely excited. I was under the impression that, Disney's one of the best storytellers in the world, in the planet. They still are for some aspects, as long as certain agendas aren't pushed. However, I did not know too much about Kathleen Kennedy, with George selecting her as the president of Lucasfilm, and, just kind of thinking back, the legacy that she created here, it had just plenty of ups and downs. We're going to get into those ups and downs here. She relaunched the franchise, beginning with J.J. Abrams' Star Wars: The Force Awakens. And, I have some thoughts on that. So we get The Force Awakens in 2015, and I thought, this is a great film. Whenever it came out initially, I was all about it. I was feeling it. I think mostly everybody really enjoyed it. Sure, it copied a lot of aspects from other Star Wars franchises and other Star Wars films, of course. I was excited about the future of what Star Wars could bring and what The Last Jedi could be, the sequel. However, that's when things just came completely crashing down. The article continues here. Disney released a Star Wars film every year from 2015 through 2019, and then they took a pause following The Rise of Skywalker, which received a mixed response and earned just half of what The Force Awakens had brought in just a few years earlier. Let's talk about that. The Last Jedi, the story, we all know it. To me, and to a lot of people, the story just was not nearly as strong as what it could have been, with major characters being killed off and far-fetched storylines they just weren't adding up. Characters from previous films were slowly being written off as well, and it just became uninteresting. And to me, it kind of felt clear that they really had no idea about a path for the sequel trilogy, what they wanted to do with it, how they wanted to move forward with it. And they brought back JJ for The Rise of Skywalker, and while it was a good attempt of saving the sequel trilogy, in my opinion, I feel like the damage had already been done. And don't get me wrong, the movie was good. I mean, it was okay. But it was clear that the direction for it, Lucasfilm was just unsure of what direction they wanted to have for this movie. And there were plenty of elements as well that were not fully explained in the film either. The article continues on here as Lucasfilm boss Kennedy held one of the most visible and scrutinized jobs in Hollywood, and it was not always smooth sailing. She fired Chris Lord and Phil Miller as the directors of Solo: A Star Wars Story right in the middle of production. The film went on to be the first Star Wars movie to lose money theoretically. She also sidelined Rogue One, a Star Wars story director, Gareth Edwards, replacing him with Tony Gilroy, who was brought on to oversee reshoots. The film became a $1 billion hit. Other projects that were promised but never materialized, such as Rian Johnson's trilogy, thank God, and another one overseen by Game of Thrones showrunners D.B. Benioff and David Weiss. Daisy Ridley's upcoming return to Star Wars has been languishing in development since being announced to fanfare almost 2 years ago. And those spin-off films, they, aside from Rogue One, it did well, but not as well as it could have, I feel like. Solo, the movie, was the one that no one ever even saw because of the fact that the way the sequel trilogy ended up turning out. And the thing is, guys, Solo's actually a good movie. If you haven't seen Solo, I implore you to go check it out. It's actually a solid film. No one just watched it though, just based on the sequel trilogy, on how it performed. Kathleen made these changes, and just based on everything that was done with the sequel trilogy, people just lost interest and they did not go to see Solo because of it. Solo suffered because of it. And we saw that once again with Skeleton Crew later on. And I'll get to that here in a little bit whenever it comes to Skeleton Crew. And I think Kathleen, and I'm paraphrasing here, I could be wrong, just let me know in the comments, but I think Kathleen, she said something to the effects of, no one watched Solo because no one cared about the Han Solo character. But I feel like that couldn't be any further from the truth whenever it comes to that. Let me know what her quote was. I know she said something in regards to that, but she couldn't be any more incorrect on that theory, that is for sure. But even as Star Wars struggled to return to the big screen, the franchise found new life on Disney Plus with The Mandalorian launching in November of 2019, along with the streaming service. It became a breakout hit, spawning multiple spin-offs, including the critically acclaimed Andor, which returns for a second season in April, as well as multiple shows that failed to hit the mark and sparked worries of diluting the Star Wars brand. Now let's talk about these TV series for a minute, and there were plenty of hits. There were also plenty of misses here, guys. So let's talk about The Mandalorian first. The Mandalorian, just one of the best Star Wars shows I think ever created, from seasons 1 and 2. I remember before even doing countdown and watch parties on this channel, I remember ordering Blaze Pizza, getting my pizza for lunch, and just going in and sitting down and watching The Mandalorian season 1. It kind of became like a routine for me every Friday afternoon. I mean, I was locked in. It was incredible. It was just so great and so fresh. I couldn't wait to see what happened week after week, guys. And then whenever season 2 came along, the story expanded even further. And I felt a true, genuine love for Star Wars universe once again, for the first time probably since Revenge of the Sith, I would say. And between the releases of seasons 2 and 3, we got the Book of Boba Fett. There was a lot of hype around that, if you guys recall. Super excited on that. And then whenever it released, you want to talk about a disappointment. You want to talk about dumbing down one of the best antagonists in the entire galaxy. And that's exactly what we got on that. It took the Mandalorian himself to save that series, which, those episodes did tremendously well. But again, the disconnect was absolutely glaring. Was this story about the Mandalorian or was it about Boba Fett? And think about this for a second, guys. If it takes a newly created Star Wars character to upstart a series of a character that was long-standing since the original trilogy, bro, something is glaringly wrong. It's freaking Boba Fett, man. You shouldn't have to have a newly created character come in to an episode 2 episodes, mind you, to save the series. Like, what is going on? Season 3 of Mando came, and, you know, it seemed as though the show didn't really know what direction it wanted to take, to be honest. The show didn't have that edge that it had. And once again, it felt as though things were just going in the wrong direction once again. And by that time, I just kind of concluded, I'm just starting to lose interest here. And I believe my audience, I believe you guys were starting to lose interest to it as well. You know, I remember doing my countdown watch parties. The interest just wasn't there as much as it was in earlier episodes, or earlier seasons, I should say, of The Mandalorian. Coming up, Lucasfilm has The Mandalorian and Grogu from director Jon Favreau, which is due out on May 22nd, 2026, as the first big screen outing for the franchise since The Rise of Skywalker. Article goes on and talks about Kathleen Kennedy's career, yada, yada, yada. I have a lot more to say, though, about this and why we're in the situation that we're in right now in the first place. Let's talk about some of the other series. We had the Obi-Wan series, right? It was great. I was so excited. Obi-Wan series was the first Countdown Watch Party series that I ever did on this channel. The first Countdown Watch Party series I ever did on this channel. It was amazing. It was so much fun. But the problem is that the show didn't have a direction, bro. It just seemed like it wanted to focus on Reva more than Obi-Wan himself. I mean, the show's titled Obi-Wan Kenobi. When you have a show about Obi-Wan Kenobi and it just ends up being more about a side character, you just know something's wrong here. Like, why are we focusing on the show, on an Inquisitor of Darth Vader? To the point that I feel like she became the main focus of the entire storyline. I was looking forward to the show. I thought it was going to be about like every single nightmare that Ben Kenobi had, with Vader kind of taunting him as he and the Empire ruled the galaxy with an iron fist. We did have some nice flashback scenes. We had some great flashbacks of, Obi-Wan and Anakin. That was cool. Some cool interactions with Obi-Wan and Vader as well. But by and large, this was largely unexplored, I feel like. And, we were kind of left with this slow chase scene with young Leia, and it was literally the slowest chase scene I think I've ever seen in modern cinema. We had barely any scenes with Luke Skywalker. Bro, I thought Obi-Wan Kenobi's assignment was to look after Luke. We had like 2 or 3 scenes with Luke Skywalker in this entire series. What? No. His sworn assignment was to watch over Luke, and it just barely even happened. This was just a messy show. We did have some solid shows under Kathleen's belt. We have, aside from Mando, of course, we have the Ahsoka show. I thought Ahsoka's fantastic. I'm looking forward to season 2 with you guys. That's going to be great. Can't wait to see how that shapes out. Andor's going to be fire. Obviously, that series is fantastic. Season 2's right around the corner whenever it comes to that. A couple months here. The Skeleton Crew. That was phenomenal, guys. Skeleton Crew was absolutely incredible. But the problem is with the Skeleton Crew, nobody watched it due to the Acolyte, which I'm going to get into in a minute whenever it comes to that. But the Skeleton Crew, man, so good. Even though it garnered for children, I feel like it was an absolutely brilliant show by and large. Great storytelling, very successful due to that, well drawn out character development, and no pandering to any demographics at all. And that is something that the Acolyte absolutely thrived on doing. When I found out that Lucasfilm was doing a show about the Old Republic, bro, I was pumped. Like, let's go. I couldn't have been more excited about that. But by the end of the final product, whenever it was released here, I was extremely nervous. It was clear that this show was going to suffer on its identity, and the Acolyte just could not get out of its own way. We were back to checking things off of a list instead of just sitting down and telling a good story. Pandering to a demographic instead of telling a good story. And this is because the president of Lucasfilm decided to hire a writer who clearly had an agenda and a thought process that wasn't true of George Lucas's original vision. And that's just it. Like, the vision hasn't changed. It's always been there from the start. Bro, this is Star Wars. Like, it's literally a space soap opera, as George has described it many, many times in the past. Good versus evil, right? Evil kind of, realizing second chances do exist and can be redeemed and become good once again moving forward. Life lessons. Like, this isn't about putting together an agenda and checking off a certain amount of boxes here, guys. We sort of had a cool villain, but the vision of this show was so disconnected that it didn't fit the story properly at all. And the idea, it just missed the mark. And the Acolyte, it executed so poorly that some fans just deemed Star Wars as a dead IP at this point. And I'm all about getting fresh ideas, but just tell us a good story. That's all we want, is a good story that doesn't force politics and push agendas on us. We watch Star Wars to escape all of that, and I'm all about visiting new time periods, but can we not waste them for crappy executed storylines, please? Like, oh my God, this show could have been so much more, man. The Old Republic, it's a storyline, a timeline, excuse me, that we've never even explored before in live action. This could have been fantastic. And instead, we're just checking off boxes and pandering to agendas instead of just telling a good story. This show, it just could have been so much more. And instead, it just nearly toppled the franchise, and it has completely divided the Star Wars fandom at this point. At the end of the day, this is Kathleen Kennedy's legacy, guys. You know, she's had some very successful shows and films, you know, some that were absolute bangers and some that were flops. A lot of them that were flops. Divided the fan base more than anything based on political viewpoints and agendas that were pushed on these shows and films. I believe that whenever it comes to Star Wars, there's a certain responsibility that one must take when taking on a franchise as big as Star Wars. And I truly think that she wasn't up for the task here. George may have handpicked her, but I don't think that he could have predicted this outcome at all. And in his defense, no one could have. You know, impossible to see the future was, right? I just hope that moving forward, you know, Lucasfilm can find a president that cares about storytelling, bringing together the fan base, most importantly, that is passionate and reiterating here once again, devoted to telling us a new original story. Because at the end of the day, that's all we want is exceptional storytelling. And for crying out loud, can we actually have a plan? Do you see the disconnect I'm talking about? Look, I'm all for diversity and fresh ideas, but when it comes to focus over storytelling, that's when most people seem to check out. Star Wars was never about checking boxes. It was all about great characters and emotional journeys that they had. I know a lot of you guys are sitting there that it's just too late for Star Wars anyways. It doesn't matter. This is too little too late. Star Wars is dead anyway. And to put it bluntly, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. And, you know, all it takes is one show, one movie to bring things back together. I believe it. Once the news spreads that a new show or movie is brilliant, the IP will be back and it'll be stronger than ever before. I truly believe that. And it will be riding momentum. So I don't believe that for 1 second. Anyone who says that, I do not believe that. I will argue that forever. I mean, guys, think about this for a second. Star Wars has been built on for decades. Generation upon generation, guys. All it takes is one film, one good show, one good movie to turn things around. We've seen it before, and I truly think we will see it again. So for the fans out there calling it dead, calling this franchise dead, I honestly think that you're part of the problem here. You know, you need to have an open mind, and you're probably part of the reason why, you know, that kind of toxic, dogmatic viewpoint set this IP back in the first place. We'll see who ends up being the successor to Kathleen Kennedy moving forward. I think we need someone, who can tell us awesome stories. Maybe someone like Dave Filoni, maybe Jon Favreau. Is it one of those two to end up taking over as president? Maybe. But I think we just need someone who wants to tell us, you know, stories to keep us captivated moving forward. One thing's for certain, I think the next president needs to respect the lore of Star Wars. They need to respect the fans, their opinion, and maybe take it into account. But most importantly, man, just tell us a damn good story. That's all I want, man. I just want a good story. And good storytelling is definitely going to keep things moving here and not pandering to agendas and checking off boxes on a list. So with that said, I'm curious on your thoughts on this, guys. Let me know in a non-attacking, spirited conversation in the comments below what you guys think about this story, what you guys think about this news. No hate. I won't hesitate to remove anyone hating or anything like that. Don't hate. Let's be respectful to one another. Let's keep it civil. But let me know, do you think Kathleen Kennedy's departure will save Star Wars, or is it already too late? Let's talk about it down in the comment section below. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching the video. Until the next one, I'm your host with the most A to the P, Albert Perkins, and we will see you in the next video. Until then, and as always, may the Force be with you.